Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Vincent Ramlochan, and I am the Commercial Officer at the Embassy of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago here in Panama City. I want to thank everyone for taking time from their busy schedules to join us here this morning to learn about the product registration process for chemicals, medicine, and personal care products. This has been a topic of great interest from exporters, and it is my hope that this session will provide you with a clearer understanding of the product registration process to help you make an informed decision. I thought it was important to keep this session sector specific as different products are registered by different government agencies here in Panama. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we start. All microphones and cameras have been disabled. This has been done to help minimize disruptions during the session and to help preserve bandwidth. There is a question and answer segment at the end of all of our presentations for approximately 5 minutes, but I would like to suggest typing your questions in the chat bar and our presenters will be able to answer the questions during the session. This will allow us to answer as many questions as possible during the time allotted. Finally, this webinar is being recorded and all presentations will be shared with participants after the event. Without any further delay, I would like to introduce our legal experts who will walk us through our session this morning. First, I would like to introduce Monique Ferrer, who's a partner, and Medicamen Gonzalez, an associate from the Health and Regulatory Department at Alfaro Ferrer and Ramirez. Over to you, Monique and Medicamen, for this morning's session.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you, Vincent, for the opportunity to do this presentation for Panama. First of all, I would like to introduce our firm. We are a law firm that has 59 years of existence. We are a general services firm in which we not only provide regulatory advice and regulatory procedures like the product registration, regardless what kind of product it is, but also intellectual property department, trademark registration, patents, copyrights, labor law, commercial law, corporate, and many other parts of the law service. So we remain at your disposal in case you ever need any kind of service within the Panamanian territory. In this opportunity, we are happy to talk about the product registration specific to chemicals, drug and pharmaceuticals, and personal care, hygiene, and cosmetic products. We specifically were asked to talk about these products since they are the most interest for the population of the Trinidad and Tobago territory. So if you then further need any information on other products such as beverages, food, animal consumption products, alcoholic beverages or such, we would be happy to assist you. I'll share our emails after the presentation. Okay, first of all, we're gonna talk, as I said, about the whole process of sanitary registration of products. We're gonna ride you through the local competent authorities, what are the laws and the regulations, the definitions, then all the process and the conclusions. And afterwards, we will be happy to answer any concerns or any questions that you may have. For the chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and personal hygiene products, the specific authority, which is like the most basic authority actually, is the Ministry of Health. Which has like several directions, but all regarding the cosmetic products and hygiene for household and also for industrial are handled by the National Direction of Pharmacy and Drugs. Then there is the Attorney General Office, then the National Commission for Study and Prevention of Drug-Committed Crimes, and the Chemical Control Unit. The only authorities that are involved in the registration process or the obtention of the sanitary registration or the market authorization, as so many people call it, are specifically the Ministry of Health through the National Direction of Pharmacy and Drugs. The other three authorities that I just mentioned, which are the General Attorney's Office and the National Commission of Study for the Prevention of Drug-Related Crimes and the Chemical Control Unit, are for post-registration issues. If there is some issue with any product regarding the public health, or if there are, certain products that are found in the market with any kind of problems. And the Chemical Control Unit also makes some like random inspections to the market to be certain that the registration of the products are enforced and valid, and that the product that is in the market, it's accurate with the sanitary registration file that was approved by the Ministry of Health. And then the laws and regulations I'm going to just read it to them because I know this doesn't make any sense to you. So I'm just going to mention what are the laws and regulations for the process of registration of the products that I just mentioned, which are the Sanitary Code, which was approved in Panama since 1947. The Law 1 of January 10, 2001, which regulates drugs and other human health-related products as modified. Executive Decree number 13 of March 1st, 2023, where Law 1 of January 10 is regulated. Executive Decree 36 of January 17th, 2020, whereby the Law 1 is regulated and other dispositions are implemented. Law 19 of June 2005 of Prevention, Control, and Supervision Measures regarding the production, preparation, and other prosecutors and chemicals control according to Tables 1 and 2 of the 1988 Vienna Convention. Besides that, we are also members of the RTC, which is the regulation for the Central American countries on certain products. And we have, in spite of our local dispositions and regulations, we also have to comply with certain guidelines that are mandatory for the countries that are members of the RTCA, which are, for example, the natural medicinal products for human use. This stands for the labeling requirements of those natural medicine products. The labeling of pharmaceutical products for human use, medicines for human use, such as specifically good manufacturing practices for the pharmaceutical industry and its verification guide, regulations for validation of analytical methods for the evaluation and the quality of medicines, medicines for human use, which specifically is for the quality verification, like the guidelines for the authorities to be certain of what to look for when trying to verify the quality of each of the products that are on the market, stability studies, and health registration requirements for medicines for human use. In the case of cosmetics and personal care products, or hygiene products as well, that are in this category, are the health registration requirements, labeling requirements, and labeling claims, such as, and very common in cosmetics products or hygiene products, like do not put out of reach of children, or do not put clothes to fire, or claims as such, like are because of the nature of the products. In case of hygienic products, there's sanitary registration of hygienic products, the labeling of such products, and chemical productions of industrial use. There's a RTC guideline regarding the use of oxygen. Besides that, I can provide maybe a few definitions for you to understand what is the category in which each product is considered. In Panama, the drugs and pharmaceutical products are specifically defined by law as a pharmaceutical product used for the prevention, diagnosis, or treatment of a disease or pathological state, to modify physiological system for the benefit of the person to whom it was administered. That is in the case of drugs. In the case of pharmaceutical products, it's a preparation containing one or more active ingredients and excipients formulated in a form of pharmaceutical dosage. In case of the personal care and cosmetics, is a product or formulation for local application used on the various superficial parts of the body, hair, nails, lips, teeth, to clean them, perfume them, modify their appearance, protect them, or keep them in good condition, or prevent or correct body odors. In the case of chemicals, they are divided in antiseptics, disinfectants. Antiseptics would be chemical substance for topical application to living tissues, such as intact skin, mucous membranes, wounds, and others, which destroys or inhibits microorganisms without significantly affecting the tissues where it was applied. In the case of disinfectants, are the substances that destroy the germs or microorganisms present, with the exception of bacterial spores applied to inert material without altering it. The following terms, also commonly used in hygienic products, will be considered disinfectant for the application of this law, such as germicide, biocide, bactericidal, antibacterial, antiseptic, virucidal, fungicide, sterilizer, sanitizer, and sanitizer. Also, in hygiene products, there are domestic cleaning products and cleaning products for hospital or industrial use. In the case of domestic, are the substances or mixtures thereof used in cleaning surfaces, utensils, or objects that will be later in contact with living beings. These are obviously applied to all the cleaning or household cleaning products that we have in our home, like, you know, for cleaning the floors, for cleaning the stove, for cleaning, you know, everything, but in the house, in the home. And the cleaning products for hospital use are more specialized, more sterilized, and more strong developed, which are environment and surface disinfectant used in clinical or surgical settings that do not come in direct contact with the patients. It's basically all the products that are used in sanitizing all the structures in the hospital use and the operation rooms and such as that. So once having given the specifics and the definitions of each of the categories that you can register before the Ministry of Health in order to obtain the market authorization of the products, I'm going to pass the word to my associate, Mari Carmen, who's going to guide you through all the product registration process and the timings and every documentation that is going to be needed for such purpose. Mari Carmen.
Thank you, Monique. Good morning, everybody. Nice to have you here and for your time interested to hear about this topic. As Monique mentioned, I'm going to walk you through the process that can be similar to other countries, probably can be similar to what happens in Trinidad and Tobago, but Panama has a specific regulation, which Monique mentioned. Our laws and our technical regulations establish specific processes for the obtention of the sanitary registration of the categories of products we mentioned. Specifically, and it's kind of different, and I'm going to talk through in the next slide about cosmetics and personal care. The drugs and pharmaceuticals, as well as the chemicals and hygiene products, are under the same process, which starts with the request of a quotation analysis, because these products and the sample of these products will be examined or will be analyzed by the Ministry of Health to ensure the quality and its safety for personal use or human use. And that's the first start. That's the first step for starting the application. We have to request a quotation from the National Laboratory of Reference, chosen by them and specifically appointed by the Ministry of Health to perform this analysis. Once we have that, we can prepare the dossier for filing the application. In the last year, the Ministry of Health has implemented a digital platform to proceed with the applications. But right now, we're in the middle of the transition, so I'm going to walk you through the process as if we are going to do it physically, preparing a dossier, but it will also apply in the same way to the digital filing. So once we have the filing dossier and with all the legal and technical documents, which I'm going to explain to you later, we can proceed to file before the Ministry of Health and to the National Directory of Pharmacy and Drugs that Monique mentioned. Once they receive this dossier, they're going to do a preliminary review to tell the applicant or the owner of the application if the dossier is compliant with all the legal and technical requirements. If they don't, they're going to do the observations, and then they're going to tell you what you need to correct in order for them to receive and approve the dossier for then to pass to the technical evaluation. This technical evaluation is performed by a specific examiners in the director that are specialized depending on the category of the product to review the technical documentation as well as the legal documentation. And then once the technical evaluation is approved, then they're going to notify the applicant, then you have the approval, and they will issue the order for the analysis to be performed, and then issue and give you the concession of the certificate of registration. Important to note is that you don't have to wait for the analysis to end in order for the Ministry of Health to approve you the certificate analysis and the certificate of registration, because once it ends the analysis, if it's not compliant, they're gonna withdraw everything they did. But then once you have the certificate of registration, you can start commercializing and importing the product of interest. We lay down in the presentation the timeline. These timelines, and I'm gonna say that it works similar to other entities in Central America and probably in the Caribbean, are the standard timelines. This works if there are no observations from the Ministry of Health, or if the process isn't a smooth process, as we call it. If there is some observations, then obviously the days and the timeline of the examination will be extended. I see I have a question. If the tariff numbers are the same for 15 products, does each product have to be approved and you're ready? I will ask you to clarify what you mean by tariff numbers, but I can confirm that each product has to be registered individually. The only exemptions that apply is when the product is in different, let's say, commercial presentations, but it's the same product in formulation, or if the product changes, let's say for a household floor cleaning product, the only difference in the formulation is like the fragrance or something like that, then you can group them in one registration, and they will issue just one certificate. Hopefully that answers the question. Then, as I mentioned, cosmetics products have a different kind of shorter amount of period in the process of registration, because right now the Ministry of Health do not do prior analysis to the concession of the certificate of registration. However, the Ministry of Health, and this is important to notice, that the Ministry of Health has the faculty at any time during the application or afterwards to request samples of the product, or to take samples of the product that are already in the market to perform analysis, just to verify if the product complies with what is declared in the sanitary registration file. So as you can see, the cosmetic and personal product is kind of similar. The only difference is in the process is that we do not have to ask for the analysis in the reference laboratory. We just once we get all the documentation, legal and technical, we can file the dossier before the Ministry of Health. Then they will do the preliminary review. Then they will do the technical evaluation. And once the technical evaluation is approved, they will issue an order for the payment and the concession of the certificate of registration. Then again, this timeline is in the process of a regular, with no observation application. However, if there are observations that Mainly there are, because Panamanian the Ministry of Health and their examiners are very meticulous regarding the requirements. So they will issue some observations regarding the documents if they consider they do not comply with our legislation. But then again, you can file the answer to the observation and the process will continue as such. Then we thought it would be important for you to know that once the registration is granted to the owner, you can do some modifications or notifications that I'm going to explain you why there are different processes to the product itself. For example, for drugs and pharmaceutical products, you can change or you can modify the registration by informing or filing the modification to the Ministry of Health regarding the commercial presentations, the manufacturer holder, or if the name of the manufacturer holder changes. If you change the diluent manufacturer because it's a provider of the raw material, then you can declare the change. You can change the name of the active ingredient or the pharmaceutical form of the product. You can change the route of dosage administration. You can change the monograph and inserts, or if the monograph has been updated, you can also report that modification to the product. You can modify the excipient declare, and then you can always modify the label of the product as it will be commercialized in Panama. The important thing about these modifications is that it has to be exactly as the product is in the market. If you're going to import the product with a different information, there could be problems and is considered a sanction or illegality going against the law if you don't report any changes made in the registration. Then for chemicals, you can also do or report modifications on the new uses for the product, the type of authorized sales and classification of the products, new and adverse reactions, contraindications, and precautions. You can update them. You can change the label and the primary and secondary packaging. You can report the new shelf life if it changes. You can change the secondary packaging location of manufacturer if you then again change provider. You can change the analytical methodology if the product you change the laboratory and then that laboratory does a different method. You can report it to the Ministry of Health, and then you can update the finished product specification. You can always update it in order for the product to comply with what is current in the market. For cosmetic and personal care products, there are similar changes. You can change the name of the manufacturer. You can report a new manufacturer or provider of the product. You can change who is the holder, who is the owner of the product, the formula, the name of the current holder. There are some occasions, and we've seen it before, where the entity that is the holder of the sanitary registration changes, like, I don't know, laws of constitutions, or change the legal entity type. Then we must report these changes to the Ministry of Health. Then you can change the product commercial name if the product changes the name but doesn't change the formula. You can change the commercial presentations, the packaging. You can report new colors or fragrances for cosmetic and personal care products. And then again, you can modify the finished product updates. The difference between what is called a modification or a notification is that the modification has to be approved by the Ministry of Health in order for you to import or, let's say, put the product in the market. If you don't have the approval of the Ministry of Health, you cannot, it wouldn't be considered if you commercialize the product with the changes already made, then the product will not coincide with what is in the sanitary registration. In the other way, the notifications are different. The notification is literally that you just report to the Ministry of Health some changes that you did, and these are specifically noted in our law what are considered notifications. And then once you report, then you have it's considered that you have complied with law, and then you can commercialize the product with the new notifications. Then I'm going to walk you through the requirements. I don't think they are very different from what is requested in other countries, because normally these documents are generally requested by everybody, by every health authority. And we separate them from legal to technicals. I don't know if we have in the room or in the webinar attorneys, and then we have pharmaceuticals or owners of manufacturing plants that already know the specific document I'm talking about, but I separate them for easy understanding. The legal documents that will be required by the Ministry of Health is the application to be signed by an attorney and a pharmaceutical region in Panama. This is very important because we cannot file an application if the application is not reviewed and supported by the signature of a pharmaceutical region that must be a Panamanian pharmaceutical region, because that way the Ministry of Health is certifying that the product is well categorized or the technical documentation goes in order. You will need a power of attorney. Then you will need a pharmaceutical product certificate, or in some countries are issued free sale certificates, such as Panama. We will need to file the Good Manufacturing Practices certificate of the manufacturer, or similar documents we've seen in different jurisdictions that is not specifically a Good Manufacturing Practices certificate. However, the local sanitary authority does issue a kind of certification or declaration that the place of manufacturing of the product complies with sanitary measures. And then manufacturing contracts. Not everybody has manufacturing contracts, but most people, when they pay third parties to produce their product, then we have to present the evidence that the manufacturer has authorized the owner of the product to register it before the Panamanian Ministry of Health. Then the technical documentation, then again, they are very general, and some of them have specific requirements, but I'm going to list them as general as possible. We have to present the formulation, we have to present the monograph, the analysis methods, and the result certificate, the finished product specifications, the labels with all the information, the stability studies for the chemical and drug products, the safety studies, the lot number interpretation, the waste and destruction explanation, and as I told you before, the samples. The samples are not requested in the application at first, but then the institute that's going to perform the analysis will require the importation of samples for the pending analysis before granting. Then I think this is very important for you to know and to understand regarding the fees. The Ministry of Health do charge official fees for the registration of products. Usually in a regular process, the cost per product is $500 US. I mean, Panama has the Panamanian Balboa, but it's compared to the US dollar per product. And then we have to pay around $35 once the certificate will be issued or notified to the applicant. Then other expenses to consider and to have in mind, because they are mandatory to pay, are the analysis. As I explained, this analysis depends, and the cost of the analysis is not specifically established in our regulation, but we've seen, and with the general practice, we've seen that the prices vary between $800 and $2,000. Obviously, this will depend on the classification of products. For example, most of the cleaning and household products are cheaper. However, if the product will be used in a hospital or industrial, probably it will be more expensive, as well as the drug and pharmaceutical products. Then there are the pharmaceutical region fee for the signing and validation of the application. And this varies between 35 and 60, depending on the pharmaceutical region used for the application. Then the signature of this pharmaceutical region has to be availed or has to be certified by the Pharmacist National College. This means they will receive the application and they will put a seal that that person is indeed a pharmaceutical region with license to be and practice the profession in Panama. And then all the documents that are filed before our Ministry of Health have to be in Spanish, and they have to be translated by a Panamanian certified translator. And obviously this means we have to pay the fees of the translator that normally varies between $15 and $20 per page. And then some conclusions for you. We thought it would be important, besides getting to know all the general requirements and the process and the legislation, is to consider certain topics that might be important once you decide that you want to import and commercialize this kind of products in Panama, is to consider that you don't have to be local. You don't have to have a local company to own or to obtain the certificate of registration. You can do it being a foreign entity. But what will be important is that you have to have a local distributor. That would be the entity, let's say, responsible before the Ministry of Health for the commercialization of the product in Panama. And then there are options, as you can probably know, Panama is considered a logistic hub. So there are several companies that offer the 3PL options, which means that their storage units and their companies already comply with all the sanitary requirements, and they have the license to operate in doing so. So probably if you do not have a specific distributor appointed or know someone, you can also consider these big companies that they offer these services to manufacturers and importers foreign that are trying to commercialize these products in Panama. Then it will be very important that, as you can see in the documents, that the product has prior authorization for commercialization in the country of origin, which means Trinidad and Tobago. It will be important for the product to be already availed by the Ministry of Health of Trinidad and Tobago or similar, in order for the Ministry of Health of Panama to recognize the documents. We've seen in practice that one of the longest terms of documentation to obtain, or probably the most complicated and expensive, is the stability study that you have to perform on the drugs and pharmaceutical products. So our recommendation is, if you are interested in commercializing in Panama and you do not have these stability studies, then it will be important for you to start doing so, considering that Panama only accepts the Zone 4B stability study conditions. And that kind of gives some problems for other countries, because in other countries they accept other kind of conditions. And lastly, as Monique mentioned, there is the control chemical unit, that this entity is separated from the Ministry of Health, but if your product are or have in their ingredient or is a raw material regarding chemicals that are listed in the Vienna Convention, these are controlled substances, and that this means are controlled chemicals. This means that the importer will need licenses and will need to report before this unit the importation and declaration, even the transfer of these products. So I think with that I can wrap up what the general overview of the registration of and possibly commercialization of your product in Panama will do. Obviously, there's a lot of detail to be reviewed, but then again, Monique and I are at your disposal if any question arises.
Thank you, Monique and Mary Carmen. From that presentation, it's clear that you all are experts within this field, and I'm glad that you were able to share a lot of information and walk us through the entire process. Guys, just a gentle reminder to please use the chat bar to ask any questions that you may have during the session, and Monique and Mary Carmen will be able to answer those questions that are specific to the product registration process. So now I would like to introduce Christina King, who's the sales executive for Trinidad, St. Martin, and the Bahamas for Copa Airlines, who will share with us information on Copa Logistics Service that will be very important when shipping of samples and sending documents that may be required to be submitted as part of the product registration process. Christina, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Vincent, Mary Carmen, and Monique for that very comprehensive presentation. So this morning I'm here. Joining me is our inside sales for cargo based in Panama. He's off camera this morning, Joshua Pomer, but any questions that you have, feel free to put it in the chat, and Joshua will also assist with answering those queries. Right? So like Vincent mentioned, my role here this morning is just to share some information with you on our cargo product, right? So currently, we offer cargo services through our passenger operation to more than 80 destinations through Panama, and in addition to directly to Panama with our daily flights from Port of Spain. Right. In addition to which, we do have a freighter operation. This is just for your information, that operates to several of our destinations. We hope that Trinidad becomes one of these destinations very soon as well. Right. So based on the types or the categories of products that the webinar is covering today, pharmaceuticals, personal care products, and chemicals, we do offer or can handle various types of cargo for shipment, right? Specifically for the chemicals, which may fall under our dangerous goods category, we are able to handle those types of products. For pharmaceuticals, we can handle shipments of pharmaceuticals that may also require temperature control requirements, right? And of course, for the personal care products, some of it may be handled as regular shipments based on the requirements as you'll need. Specifically for pharma, like I mentioned, we do have temperature control facilities at the Panama, the Tocumen Airport, right? In addition to which, especially if they have to be transferred between the aircraft and the holding facilities, we do have temperature controls carts that can maintain the temperature that is required for the pharmaceuticals. So you can be rest assured that your goods will remain in a good state. Right. So just for your information, up on the screen, we have the dimensions and maximum weight for passenger aircraft, right? The maximum weight is 150 kilos per piece, right? And we are able to transport up to 2 to 2.5 tons of cargo per flight. So it's quite a large amount. Up on the screen at this time, you see our general cargo rates for Port of Spain, of course, quoted in US dollars, right? In addition to which, please feel free to reach out to us for the option of a cargo agreement with further discounts to Panama and our other destinations. I would make note at this point to let you know, just as Vincent mentioned, we are in the process of resuming our courier service, which should be pretty soon, and that courier service will be able to facilitate the stage of the process that you're looking to enter in right now in order to send samples of products, labels, documents, etc. So as soon as we have that information on that service being resumed, we would share it with Vincent, who would be able to share that information with all of you. Like I mentioned, we do have daily service from Port of Spain to Panama, so getting your products to Panama will not be a problem. Lastly, I have our contact information for myself and my general manager. These are the local contacts. So feel free to reach out to us via phone or WhatsApp. These are our WhatsApp numbers as well, or via email. And we're very open to setting up meetings to discuss these options with you. Right? Thank you so very much for your time today. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Christina, for that piece of information. I think it's very important, and we're glad that we would have included you guys on this webinar. So I just want to move on now to our final presenter, and this is Mr. Jonathan Sicharan, who's the Technical Officer for Grants and Funding at exporTT Limited. Jonathan will share with us some of the funding mechanisms that are available to exporters who are doing business in Panama. But this is going to be very specific to the product registration process, and I think it's very important for you guys to understand. So over to you, Jonathan.
All right, thank you very much, Vincent. Good morning, everyone. Firstly, let me just thank the commercial office for putting on this session as well as the presenters. So let me just share my presentation. It will be a very brief presentation, so please just bear with me. Let me just put it up. Vincent, could you confirm if the presentation is up?
Yes, it is.
All right, so good morning, everyone, again. Welcome to the session. Again, I will just do a brief presentation on the support that exporTT can lend to manufacturers who are interested in sending or interested in registering their products in Panama. Just to give a very brief overview of who we are. So exporTT is Trinidad and Tobago's export promotion agency. We deal in the area of helping companies build their export capacity through capacity building initiatives such as grants. We have some trade certification services, specifically in terms of issuing certificate of origin. We also do some export related market research, as well as we conduct some trade missions. So we're an agency that is here to assist companies in the overall exportation process. Jumping straight into things, where product registration is concerned, exporTT does have a grant facility called a co-financing facility that is designed to help companies or ease the financial burden of companies who have to register their products in overseas markets, in this case, Panama. Just forgive me, on the slide there, it says IP registration. That is another thing that we do. However, we're speaking specifically about product registration. So basically, depending on the cost that you incur to register the product with various agencies in Panama, we could provide support in covering up to 50% of the cost. The limits to which are dependent on the size of the company. So if you're a large company, you can get support. 50% support can reach a limit of 50,000 TT. For medium companies, 55,000, and for small companies, up to $60,000. Usually with large and medium companies, we could do the payment mechanism is usually reimbursable, where you pay the fees and we reimburse you back 50% of that to the various limits. In this case, as a small company, up to 60,000 TT dollars. For smaller companies, we can pay directly. Now, this is interchangeable depending on what is most convenient to you, the applicant, right? We can either do it reimbursable or we can pay directly to the supplier, right? So we try to make it as the payment mechanism. We try to make it as easy as possible for you. Just to delve a bit deeper into the product registration, only the cost of listing the company's product with official entities in the desired export market will be considered. So as our presenters earlier mentioned, these entities will be the equivalent of what we have here in Trinidad and Tobago, the Chemistry, Food and Drug Division of the Ministry of Health. So it will be the equivalent of that in the Panamanian market, right? The product registration process should be a legal requirement to enter the export market for the application to be considered. This is, again, as the presenters earlier would have mentioned, this is usually standard no matter where, what export market you choose. So this is usually a legal requirement for you to enter the market. So as such, we will try our best to support through some grant funding. On the rare occasion, however, and we have seen it, if applicants decide to pursue some sort of product registration in a market where there's no legal obligation to do so, they can still apply. However, just be cognizant that this is treated on a case-by-case basis, where the advantage of doing so, or how advantageous doing that with no obligation to do so would be considered, right? So very rarely we see this, but we have seen it. But usually it is a legal requirement to do so, and as such, we will extend the support as necessary. Let me just touch a bit on the process, the co-financing process. So you gather all your documentation, you submit the documentation to us here at exporTT. We review it, and with all our grants, we take it to an evaluation committee. The committee then decides if the application is suitable and makes a decision based on that, right? Supplementary information may be asked of the applicant, and it is incumbent on the applicant to provide such information. After a decision is taken, contracts are drafted to sign, and after the signing process, you are free to make the payments, and we will disburse according to the payment mechanism. The payment mechanism simply refers to whether we are going to disburse the funds as reimbursements or we pay directly to your supplier, as the case may be. You may be wondering what sort of documentation you'll need, and we'll get onto that. But before we do so, just this is just a self-check of if you are eligible. One, you should be a locally owned company. It must be in operation for at least a minimum of 1 year, and you must be a current or a potential exporter, right? And I think this was mentioned earlier. Companies should have a presence in the local market. We heard it from our presenters earlier in the presentation that you should have some sort of presence in your local market, right? It gives you some sort of validity in that respect. In terms of the documentation that you'll need, it is pretty simple. You'll need to complete the co-financing application form, which is available online. You'll need to submit your company registration documents, so whether it be your business registration certificate or your articles of incorporation. If you're a sole trader or limited liability company, you'll need to provide 1-year financial statements. Preferably, we would like to have audited financials submitted. However, we understand with smaller companies this may be challenging. So management accounts will work, right? So we have that adaptability where that is concerned. And finally, submit all your quotes and invoices. As discussed earlier, you'll need to ensure that you go to the respective entities to get your quotes and invoices. So make sure you gather all of that and send it into us as part of the entire application. Yeah. So that is just a brief run through of the support, just some key points. With product registration, it is a legal requirement in most places. We do have the support. It is up to 50% of the cost of doing so. If you are successful, we can either reimburse the amount or we pay directly to your supplier, whichever is most convenient to you, the applicant. The process is fairly straightforward, and the documentation isn't that tedious, right? as I said, in terms of the financial statements, you don't necessarily need it to be audited because that can be challenging for smaller companies. So management accounts would work, right? So with that, if you need any further information, you could feel free to reach out to me and we can have a further discussion on how exporTT can support your product registration process in Panama. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing that information on the product registration funding that is available for companies here in Trinidad and Tobago. So I don't know if there are any questions in the chat bar at this time. So let me just take a look. I think there was just one question from Christian, which we were talking about the tariff numbers, if they are the same for 15 products. And I think, Mary Carmen, I don't know, this is one that you can answer, but I think what it is asking is that, so when we're trading goods on the international market, we use a tariff code or a product code that is used to trade products. And sometimes because products are very similar, they all fall under the same code. So and this is just solely an example. So floor cleaners may fall under the same code as a surface cleaner or a stove cleaner, but they're different products, but they're just very similar and fall under the same code. Is it that for each one of those products, they must be registered because it's a stove cleaner versus a floor cleaner versus a different type of cleaner? I think that was the question.
Yeah, correct. As I mentioned, each product, it doesn't matter if the code is the same, each product has to have its own sanitary registration. The only exceptions, as mentioned, are if the product is exactly the same formulation and the only changes are the fragrance, the color, or very minimal changes that can be considered in one number under one number of registration, but that's kind of it. Then all of the product by individual have to have their own registration, and they're gonna have a specific registration number.
Can multiple products be registered under one application, or is it that will there be a separate product for the surface cleaner, a separate application, sorry, for the surface cleaner, a separate application for the floor cleaner, or can we our company submit multiple products into one application?
No, the application is individual per product.
Okay, great. I'm just giving guys just a few minutes to type any questions. So I'm seeing, how do you treat the evaluation of paint and adhesive products?
There are no current requirement for paints or adhesive products to have registration if they are not involved or have contact with humans. So the paints only have technical requirements or regulations that must comply on a specific, and it will depend on the type of paint or adhesive product. And Vincent, I'm seeing another question.
Yes, if the product registration process is one time, or is it an annual requirement?
Well, that's important, and we didn't mention it actually. The cosmetic products have a 10-year period validation, and the pharmaceutical have the pharmaceutical and the chemicals have 5 years. So you have to renew. You don't have to do a new applications. You just have to renew when the expiring date is coming up.
Okay, perfect. And just a question for me, Mary Carmen and Monique, is that when it comes to registering the products, I know you said that companies need to have a distributor, but who's the owner of the registration, or who would you recommend be the owner of that registration process? Can it be done and the registration be owned by the manufacturer, or is it something that we have to make sure that it's registered by the distributor? And then also the follow-up with that is, if we have to change this, if a company has to change distributor, does that affect the registration process?
Here in Panama, the registration is always going to be granted on behalf of the owner of the manufacturer. Always the owner is going to be the manufacturer. In Panama, the distributor is only to be declared because the distributor is the one that is going to be responsible in case of any problems with the products. And the authorities wants to have someone locally to be approached in case any problems are found or any claims are submitted by the Consumer Protection Authority or something like that. But the product is always going to be issued in the name of the manufacturer. And also, even though it is mandatory to have a distributor, like I said, it being the responsible person locally to be contacted in case of any issues, the owner or the manufacturer is always going to have the prerogative to add more than one distributor or change distributors or eliminate a distributor and put another one. There's no like limit amount of distributors that can be declared in a product, and there is also no like obligation to stick with one distributor or to spend some time with him. So it's very common to add more than one and to change distributors, and it's only like very simple communication made through the manufacturer in paper, in letterhead, communicating the change of the distributor to the authorities so they can have the actual or the current and updated distributor list in their files.
Okay, great. So I think Christian is asking a question about the timeframes, which I know you all would have shared, but in a nutshell, from start to end, like what do you think is the average time frame to get a product registered within these sectors?
Well, I can say that the difference for cosmetic and personal care products could be 4 to 6 months in total, which is the fastest kind of registration for products. And then pharmaceutical, drugs, and chemicals, which are the authorities is much thorough with the review, with the technical review, can take up to 8-9 months. And this being a smooth process, as I mentioned, but if you have observations from the Ministry of Health, then that time frame can expand a bit.
Okay, great. So I'm just seeing one more question here from Marsha. And Marsha, I think that is something that you can contact me directly on as it relates to distributors, and we can have a discussion offline. So I know if there aren't any more questions, I just wanted to take the time to thank all of our presenters for sharing their knowledge and their expertise with us. I thought this was an excellent webinar, and it shared like a lot of great information that I know Trinidad and Tobago manufacturers are very pleased and happy to hear. And I hope that, if we have any questions, companies, please feel free to reach out to me. And then as well, I can put you all in contact with Monique and Mary Carmen, and they can be able to assist you as we go through this process of registering your products and getting you all to enter the Panamanian market. So on that note, I just want to thank everyone again for taking time from their busy day, and I wish everyone a great day. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vincent, and thank you, everyone. Have a good day.